Welcome to episode 3 of the Wanteezverse of Madness. Just like last time, I will be putting a link in the description to a playlist of all of the videos referenced, as well as links to my research sources and the lore diaries. As promised, this episode is about Seonghwa. So let's re-enter the Wanteezverse. Just like with Jungho in the last episode, we are going to start with the imagery given to Seonghwa to pass into his past life memories. When I was rewatching all of the members' threshold imagery for the last video, I was really struck by Seonghwa's threshold for the first time. He is the only member we see asked to enter a bright place or a light, a detail that I found striking because his past life turned out to be so dark. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of his past life segment is full of dualities. So at the start, we see him being told to let go and relax. He is told to enter a bright place, but hesitates because he says that he is happy now. When he finally crosses the threshold, he enters into sadness and darkness. He later tells us at this point his heart was racing and he felt like he couldn't breathe, and you can see tears coming down his face. And this is the opposite of a state of relaxation. So he begins quietly crying and is unable to answer most of the questions put to him. And in his last memory, he describes being in a dark room where he is hugging someone and crying. In the wrap-up at the end of the episode, he suggests that this person that he was hugging was his love and that he killed them, or in his words, sent them to the afterlife before dying himself in that dark room. The conclusion at the end is that he was a secret agent. Now, to explain why I believe Seonghwa's dualism in this Wanteez episode is connected to the lore, we are first going to take a brief look at the concept of taeguk in Korean culture, as well as some Korean history. Even if you are not familiar with the meaning, you have likely encountered the taeguk symbol through the South Korean flag. The taeguk is the central symbol on the flag, and it is surrounded by the trigrams for the four elements that make up our world: sky, fire, water, and earth. Taeguk symbolizes the balance and harmony of the universe. We have evidence for the use of this symbol in Korea back as far as the 5th or 6th century CE during the Three Kingdoms period, around the time that Daoism was introduced to Korea from China. It has been used on the national flag of Korea since the 1880s following its adoption by the Joseon dynasty. It was used as a symbol of national resistance both inside and outside of Korea during the Japanese occupation from 1910 to 1945. Both North and South Korea just celebrated Liberation Day on August the 15th. And in honor of that, we're going to take a brief look at the occupation of Korea following the end of the Joseon dynasty. Now, up until 1898, Korea had been a vassal state of China. 10 years later, in 1905, it became a protectorate of the Japanese Empire until it was formally annexed in 1910. During the occupation, Koreans were treated as second-class citizens. The Japanese government banned the use of Korean names, banned Korean language publications, and eventually banned the Korean language entirely in 1943. Historical sites were destroyed and tens of thousands of artifacts were stolen. More than 80,000 of these artifacts still had not been returned as of 2020. During World War II, over 5 million Koreans were conscripted as forced labor, and an estimated 10% or more died due to the harsh working conditions. More than 50,000 Korean workers in Japan, a combination of forced laborers and immigrants, were killed when the bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima by the U.S. military, and tens of thousands more suffered the lifelong effects of the injuries and radiation exposure. Tens of thousands of Korean girls and women, known as comfort women, many of whom were between the ages of 12 and 17, were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military. After the Japanese surrender, the United States started its own occupation of South Korea. an occupation that continues to this day. The U.S. military has 9 major bases in South Korea and around 70 smaller installations around the country at various Korean military sites. And the U.S. occupation has brought with it its own share of brutality. In July 1950, some 400 Korean refugees were killed by the U.S. Army near the village of Nogunri. This was one of many massacres carried out by the U.S. military during the Korean War. In May 1980, a series of pro-democracy student-led demonstrations began in Gwangju. The military junta extended martial law to the entire country, and on May 18th, a violent crackdown on these protests began, triggering a 9-day uprising of the Korean people until overwhelming military force ended it on May 27th. An estimated 1,000 to 2,000 people were killed, and an additional 1,800 to 3,500 were wounded. Records declassified by the United States government show that the crackdown was carried out with the knowledge and support of the U.S. government. Recent poll data shows that around 40% of South Koreans have an unfavorable view of the United States, and protests against the U.S. military presence in Korea continue to this day. After the establishment of the South Korean government in 1948, the Taeguk flag came to represent not just a national flag, but a symbol of shared history and struggle. In more recent years, however, much like what has happened in the United States, the Korean flag has been co-opted by the Korean far right and is frequently waved at far-right protests alongside the American flag, though there have been attempts in the past few years by liberals to reclaim it. Now, if you are from the West, you may be familiar with the concept of Taeguk through the Chinese symbol of yin and yang. In Korean, these are called and yang, and these are the terms that I will be using throughout this video. In Western thought, we tend to characterize opposing forces such as light and dark as being locked in struggle against each other with a cosmically decided victor. So light conquers the darkness. In Daoism, these opposing forces exist in balance in a unity of opposites, and one cannot exist without the other. You cannot have light without dark. We can see another example of this unity of opposites in Seonghwa himself, with his embrace of genderless fashion and ability to express himself in both traditionally masculine and feminine ways, as we see here. Now, this is obviously an oversimplification of complex philosophical ideas, but I believe that it is a sufficient definition for us to start with here in this video, since this is neither a class on Western philosophy nor on Taoist thought. If you are interested in either or both of these, there are plenty of other videos and articles out there for you to watch and read, and I'm sure your local librarian would happily point you to some books as well. So let's come back to Taeguk. Now, the blue represents the and the red represents the yang. And we're going to look at how this applies to the AT's multiverse. So first we have ATs and holities, and World A and World Z. When we first see World Z, it is dominated by an excess of logic, or yang. ATs are brought over by holities to help overthrow that system and rebalance World Z by helping people feel their emotions again. From the Thunder Letter in the Lore Diaries, we learn that following the rebellion, World Z is now split into 2 zones. The Liberation Zone, where people feel their emotions freely, and the Control Zone, where people continue to live as they had been before. So we can think of these as being the zone and the yang zone. The Golden Hour Lore Diaries start by saying the red moon rises. Now, the moon is traditionally associated with and red refers to Sopro in this case. With Sopro accidentally unleashed on the world by Uyang, World A is now suffering from an excess of or raw emotion no longer balanced by logic. and ATs find themselves once again in a struggle to rebalance the world. If you go back and watch the ATs music videos, you will notice the red and blue color palettes occur over and over again. One of the most obvious recent examples is Golden Hour Part 3. This image right here on your screen is a screenshot from the Lemon Drop music video, a video that is overwhelmingly blue. Blue denim, blue sky, blue convertible, blue water, etc. And this image is from In Your Fantasy, a music video that is overwhelmingly red. This is just one example, and I'm not going to go through every music video here. The channel A Tiny Bug Inc. actually has a whole video about red and blue in ATEEZ's music videos, and I've placed a link to that video down in the description. So now let's look at this promo video for Golden Hour Part 4. Now you may have noticed it back when the video was first released, but the visuals here look a lot like the Taeguk imagery that we have been looking at. From the Golden Hour Part 4 inclusions in the A, Z, and Diary versions, we were also given the statement, when mutual universes cross and when mutual universes collide, they are tempered into something stronger. I think it makes sense to look at this statement as a narration of this video that we just watched, because it is also an expression of Taeguk. In Daoism, the universe is in a constant state of change. Ki, or energy, flows through everything and fluctuates between the and the yang states. The interaction of these two results in transformation. And if it helps to understand the concept of Ki, just think about the Force in Star Wars. As Obi-Wan tells us in the first Star Wars film, A New Hope, the Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It is an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. Now, Seonghwa is famously a huge Star Wars fan, and if you are too, this may help you understand some of the concepts that we have been discussing here, since George Lucas drew on Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, philosophies that are all part of Korean history and culture, along with Western philosophy to create the Star Wars universe. Coming back to that statement, when mutual universes cross and when mutual universes collide, they are tempered into something stronger. This statement speaks to the act of transformation that occurs when the forces of and yang interact. We see this play out in the lore diaries in the way the members are transformed by their experiences in World Z. But the first transformation that we see occurs before the members ever leave World A, and this transformation happens to Seonghwa. When we first see Seonghwa in the diary film, he is surrounded by to-do lists and is seemingly obsessed with structure and following the rules. In short, Seonghwa has an excess of yang until one day he sees a girl dancing outside a convenience store. In the lore diaries, he says about that moment, quote, "Everything around me froze for a moment. The only thing I could hear was the sound of music coming from her earphones. She was moving as if nothing mattered anymore. Common sense, rules, and this tough world didn't have power over her moves. Right this moment, my world broke along this snowy road. Something changed in me, but I stayed still and couldn't say anything. She dropped a bracelet that had 'Be Free' engraved on it." In the diary film, he says that in this moment, he finally realized what he lacked the most. He refers to this transformation later on in the Fever epilogue when he says, quote, "If it were me in the past who was stuck up and scared to break the rules, I would have reacted the same as the other members when Hung Joon suggested his idea. Maybe this made me even madder, but now I'm not the person who I used to be. Saving Yosang is my top priority." Now, this moment is mirrored in Wanteez episode 49, Test Subjects Part 1. When the members wake up and realize that they have been abducted following the hunt, Yoseng is taken away to the operating room, and the members have to go rescue him. Just like how Yoseng is captured in the lore diaries and has to be rescued by the members. In this scene, rather than Seonghwa insisting they must save Yoseng, he tells the members, let's ditch him, but then later tells Yoseng that they wanted to ditch him. In the Boy Love episodes, when we first see Seonghwa, he is talking about how he never breaks the rules. He was class president in elementary and middle school, plus his first year of high school. He is top in his grades and is focused on his studies. He and Hongjun fight over who gets the chair directly in front of the teacher and who is the better student. At the start, he says that he is most attracted to Hongjun, someone who only cares about studying just like himself. But by the end, he chooses Mingi, who tells Seonghwa, just do whatever it is you want to do, and I will support you. This is definitely an echo of the symbolism of the Be Free bracelet from the lore diaries. Now, let's take a look at the two books that Hongjun is holding in this scene. He says he brought both because he didn't know which one Seonghwa would need. And what caught my eye about these books is that one is blue and one is red. Now, when Seonghwa is informing them of his choice, Hongjun holds out the books like he wants Seonghwa to choose one. And that's kind of exactly what is happening in this scene. Seonghwa is choosing between represented by Mingi, and Yang, represented by Hongjun. Yes, Jungho is there too, but he's never really a serious contender and is just doing a bit to get more minutes in the episode. At the end, Seonghwa, like I said, chooses Mingi or just as he picks the Be Free bracelet and chooses to be transformed in the lore diaries. Now, because I'm me, I had to go look and see exactly what these books were. So the red book on the left side of your screen is the 2017 edition of a 5th year English vocabulary SAT prep book. And the blue book on the right is a 2018 edition of a life sciences textbook. Now here we have a couple obvious dualities again. Science versus humanities plus red versus blue. There is actually a third duality, but in order to see it, you need to know two things. The first, which you already know, is that ATs are pirates, as represented by the cover of the blue book. The second is that in the Golden Hour lore diaries, Seonghwa is working as a firefighter, and this is represented by the word rescue on the cover of the red book. In the Golden Hour lore diaries, Woo-young tries to get the members back together to pursue their dreams, which means that the choice for Seonghwa is choosing between continuing the life that he has built as a firefighter or pursuing his dream as part of ATs. Now, this could be a nod to that choice already being put to the members in the past, but it also could be a nod to the members being faced with choosing again in the future if they are going to make another try at achieving their dreams once World A is brought back into balance following their struggle with Sopro. Now, you may have noticed that unlike in the last two videos, I didn't talk about Seonghwa's character Broker in The Hunt, and that's because I don't believe that there is a lore connection. I honestly think that this was just Seonghwa living his best life, and I absolutely love that for him, especially since he is not a fan of scary stuff like haunted houses and horror concepts. Now, one last thing before I go. This is Seonghwa's trading card from Golden Hour Part 5. His position is Balance Core. He is deeply emotional, but able to regulate his emotions with logic, and has faced internal conflict in the past. The implication being that he has been transformed in a positive way by these past conflicts, just like he was transformed at the beginning of the lore. And this description makes Seonghwa the embodiment of Taeguk. If you have stayed with me until the end, thank you so much for watching. Right now, the plan is that the next video is going to be about Yuno. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you again for watching.